Good evening, everyone. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown, and I'm welcoming you tonight to Bridging the Gap. Somebody said, what is she doing now? Bridging the Gap curates conversations. I call them pop-up conversations amongst faith leaders, activists, and social justice warriors that focus specifically on addressing HIV, sexual health, and human sexuality. So I'm very excited about that. And from a faith-based perspective, we also provide information on combating religious oppression that impacts the sexual health of Black people, right? And so uh, dealing with the Black church, how the Black church can become invested in HIV prevention and awareness, human sexuality, bodily autonomy, as well as unpack what I believe are some of the medical mistrusts and traumas that continue to plague the Black and Brown community. And so I have decided to have these pop-up conversations. I'm working with the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. They wanted me to be an ambassador. I said yes. I had already decided that I was going to be having these conversations, didn't know how I was going to be doing it. Was going to talk to Bishop Flenda about what we were going to be doing. And they came to me and I said, yeah. And I said, okay, I know so many people. And so this particular person, I'll call him the great metaphysician. Bishop Cheeks, will you come on and greet our online audience? Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. It is an honor to be here, and
Yeah.
especially with my sister here doing this great work. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Bishop Cheeks, tell the people a little bit about you. Like I said, I call you the great metaphysician, but there's so much to know about Bishop Rainey Cheeks.
Well, my background is in metaphysics. I was ordained in 82. I started practicing actually metaphysics as far back as 71.
Wow.
I was initiated in Kriya Yoga in 1977, directly from the headmaster from Yogananda. And it's a lifelong journey. And I always tell people, if you really follow Jesus, you'll follow one of the greatest metaphysicians that you could ever study.
Indeed.
So I tell people ask me, they said, are you a believer? I said, no, I know. There's a difference between believing and knowing.
Yeah, I love it, Bishop.
And my work has started with HIV. Actually, before I really started ministry, I'm the founder of Us Helping Us.
Yes.
That I founded Us Helping Us in 1985.
Tell us about that, because I think that that's very important. These are foundational points that people need to understand.
In the beginning, I was leading a meditation circle. And so we're talking early 80s. I was the manager of the clubhouse, which was a non-alcoholic dance club.
Okay.
So you can imagine, on a weekend, on a Saturday night, we averaged between 12 to 1,500 people.
Wow.
Open at midnight and close between 6 and 8 the next morning.
Right.
With no alcohol. Punch, fruit, candy, and the police raided us several times, and they could not figure out. This man said to me, you have got to be doing something illegal for people to line up out here on every weekend. And I said, we have been dancing since the first drum.
Wow.
I said, and you should be glad that we dance to this drum, because it relieves our frustrations from people like you doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So be glad that we still, our ancestral roots are deep in us.
Yeah.
That we continue to dance, and that's our freedom. Then all of a sudden, we started noticing people getting sick.
Yeah.
And back then, they didn't even call it AIDS, they called it GRID, gay-related infectious disease.
Wow. Come on, take us back, Bishop.
So now it was being blamed into the white gay community. However, we noticed in our community, people were getting sick too, but they were dying from pneumonia. They were dying from cancer.
Yes.
Yes, it was cancer. Yes, it was pneumonia. It was PCP. Yes. And you would preach funerals and they would say to you, you can't say anything about AIDS. The month of November 1989, I preached 17 funerals in the month of November.
My God.
Not okay, that was the month of November.
That was just the month of November.
The month. I have been preaching 3 to 5 a month throughout the year. But for some reason, 1989, the month of November, I preached 17 funerals. And I will never forget the title of the last one was One More Empty Chair.
Wow.
And when they came to me, I said, I was trying to get out of it. I said, I know somebody who can preach this and they're very good. And his mother looked at me and said, his last request was for you to preach his funeral, please. And I'm going to tell you, I was so mad with God. I said, I can't do anymore. You know, what is to stop this? Help me. I was absolutely mad. And Vanessa, when you're preaching, because everybody kind of knew each other.
Yes.
So you're seeing the same people, but one more person's missing. And that was a rough period.
Yeah.
And so, and the Black church, I have criticized the Black church mainly, a lot of it, because the Black church was not speaking up. The Black church was condemning people. You would go to a funeral and the eulogy would be, the wages of sin is death.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. I went to one church and I decided, I said, okay, I'm just going to, whatever they say, I'm not going to protest. I just want to get through the service. And the pastor went right into sexual bad habits and what it would do and death. And his lover wrote a note and sent it back to me. What are you going to do?
Yes.
And I'm like, and everybody kept sort of looking back at me, and I'm going, I just wanted to come to the worship service. I'll get out of here. So he looked at me and just nodded his head like, please. So I just stood up and turned my back. And everybody started standing up, turning their back to the preacher. So they came and tapped me and said, you have to sit down. I said, no, I don't. They said, you have to leave. I said, absolutely. I said, y'all can keep the body. We got this. And I walked out and almost the whole church dumped out.
In the street, which you could.
Yes. And we went across the street and I'm looking at everybody around me. And I prayed and I did a eulogy right there on the field with a circle of people. And he invited me to come to his house. And we did service there.
Yeah.
That was the kind of radical things you had to do at the time.
At the time.
And the Black church, I say again, did not speak up and hold people accountable.
Yes.
We had a list, believe it or not. I had a list of pastors of churches to go to and churches not to go to.
I believe it.
And
almost like the Green Book.
Yeah.
You know, there was a list of places you can stop along the road in the South.
Yes.
Places you should not go to, but places that you could go to find refuge and safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I met Bishop Flonder at a conference.
Yes.
We would go to a conference and I was always like, who I used to call the little black women. Pranessa Seal, at the time, Reverend Flonder, and there was another lady. And I used to tease them about being short. And I said, oh, yes, when the little short ones come in, they're about to tear up something. So I called them my little black tornadoes.
Yes.
But I met Carl Bean, who was in LA.
Yes.
He was the founder of MAP. Bishop Flonder, the founder of City of Refuge.
Yes.
And I'm the founder of Us Helping Us, which, interesting, all of us started AIDS ministries, and it developed out of the church, developed out of the AIDS ministries.
Absolutely.
So we were like that one place that people could come and be safe.
Yes.
And we challenged the theology.
Yeah.
About 6 years ago, I had 5 Black Baptist ministers come to me, and when they asked me if I would meet, and I said yes. And when I got there, they said, "We want to talk to you about your sexuality." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And I knew one, and he said, "Rainey, you know me, I'm going straight to the point. How do you justify your relationship with the Lord, being an openly gay man?" I said, "Answer this question, and I that's where we need to start. Tell me who's not welcome to the table of God. And when you identify who that is, then I want to come to your church, and on Sunday, from the pulpit, I want you to say, these are the people who are not welcome to the table of God, and you need to leave my church. If you are a drunk, leave my church. If you are having sex out of wedlock, leave my church." And I went down the list, and one of them said, "Well, damn, we won't have anybody." I said, "I'm just trying to follow your theology."
Right. Following what you say. Exactly.
Yeah, I said, "God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, whosoever will."
Yes.
I said, all of you are going to have an accountability. When I was hungry, did you feed me?
Yeah.
When I was naked, did you clothe me? I said, notice there are no qualifications on it.
Right.
And he looked at me and said, "I told y'all we would get to the right person."
Right.
And the church, the Black church at the time, got so caught up on what they call sort of sexuality.
Yeah.
And what was wrong, what they thought was wrong.
What they thought was wrong.
And you know, Vanessa, anytime you actually really debate them one-on-one, they get absolutely lost.
Yes, they do.
I always start off with say, show me a scripture, not what Paul said, what
Right.
Jesus said
Show
about homosexuality.
You won't find one.
Not one. The closest you can come when he spoke to the eunuchs, some of you were born this way, some of you made this way, some of you chose this way to serve the kingdom of God. I said, that's the closest you can come.
Yeah.
So sexuality was that one thing that locked the Black church, and they didn't know how to deal with it.
They didn't know how to open the door.
Yeah. Jeremiah Wright said to me, he said, "You know, I used to preach against homosexuality every chance I got."
Yeah. Then he wrote a book called Good News for the Homosexual. I'll never forget it. I remember it.
And what changed him was he said his nephew came to him and said, "Uncle Jeremiah, I need you to know who I am." He said, "Boy, I know who you are. I raised you." Sure. He said, "No, you need to know who I am.
Who I am.
This is not my roommate. This is my lover. I'm gay."
Yeah.
And Jeremiah said it was easy to preach against homosexuality as long as it was over there. But when it came right here.
Yeah, right to his face.
Yes, really personal.
Yep.
Now he had a problem trying to preach going to hell to his nephew, his godson. And that is the same thing happened to
so many preachers.
Yes.
I can tell you right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so it became a challenge. And for me doing the work here, I used to get death threats all the time.
Yeah.
Vanessa, when I first opened church, the first 3 years, almost I could be guaranteed a month, some letter would come or some threat would come to me about being gay and being a minister, that I was an abomination and I was going to hell.
So 30 years, 30 years have passed at least when this epidemic has taken place. ravaged our communities, particularly Black people. Now we know it's Black and brown people as well, right? And the church did nothing. So now here we are 30 years later. The numbers are rising again. The age rates are 18 to 24 and then 50 and above. In your guesstimation, what else can the Black church do?
Imagine if each denomination gave a mandate that they were all going to preach the same subject on the same day. How many people would they reach? And really educate themselves, or bring somebody in to do the educational work, or let's take a whole month and dedicate it to that subject, to HIV.
Yeah, sure.
How many people would you reach? When I used to get into the church, we called it going in the back door.
Uh-huh.
Because we knew the minister, the pastor we couldn't get to. So I would go to the women's auxiliary. And I knew that when I got to the mamas,
Yeah.
I had a lady one time, I did a presentation about HIV and the virus, and she was 80, almost 90 years old.
Wow.
And she came up to me and she said, Reverend Cheeks, she said, let me get this clear. This, you get infected by having sex, or like needles and drugs, something like that? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, so that could be anybody. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, why haven't you been here at this church to speak? I said, the door's not open. She said, come on. She walked up to me, to the pastor, and said, get him in here this month. And he looked at her and said, well, mother, she said, I was here before you got here, and I'll be here when you're gone. Get him in here. 2 weeks later, guess who was in the church?
You.
So it took those strong Black women, because they knew that mama instinct kicked in.
Sure.
And that was our way of getting in. I called it going in the back door.
Yeah.
The church today, here's the difference. Back then, there was an urgency.
Yeah.
Because so many people were dying.
Absolutely.
And you could tell when they were sick, because back then, like AZT, the dosages were so high, yeah. People were turning dark, their hair would get straight, you knew it.
Yes.
Vanessa, I am the only living person from the original group of Us Helping Us.
Wow.
I literally buried every one of the members. So the urgency, because the medications are good.
Yeah.
The urgency of being sick is like, take a pill.
Yeah.
What people don't see is all the behind when you're sick at home by yourself, when you are having trouble taking medications because of the side effects are still there.
Yeah.
And so we have young people who are getting sick or infected.
Yeah.
But the urgency of dying has sort of been taken out. So now you got those two groups, the younger group, 18 to 25, and then over 50. But most of the people over 50 were infected earlier.
Yeah.
So they're just living longer.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me to watch. I am HIV positive. I've been infected since 1985.
Wow.
And
first of all, I have to say, thank you for your transparency. Somebody's going to watch this and hear you say that you've been infected since 1985. Bishop Cheeks, I was 15 years old.
I was too.
Yeah. I knew you were going to do that for our last conversation. But No, seriously, they will say, wow, you know, people can live longer when you take care of yourself, when you take the medication, because there are different things. There's not a whole, obviously, you know this, you don't have to take 20 pills a day.
It's nothing like it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And because when you got sick back then, usually they would tell you you got maybe 2 to 3 years. And people were dying within that 2 or 3 years. I never felt like I was going to die. When they told me, I sat there for a minute and looked at them and was like, okay. I said, I got this. And that's when I came up with the slogan, I have it, it doesn't have me.
Yeah. I shared that with somebody the other day.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about terminologies and what's used now, and how HIV, how saying that someone is HIV positive puts them in a place where their humanity is not identified. So they say people living with HIV. But I remember saying that to someone, and they actually repeated exactly what you said to me, right? I'm not living with HIV. HIV is living with me.
Yeah, I used to joke and say, I'm ready to leave. Come on, let's go.
Right.
But also, this is when I stopped saying I believe and changed it to I know. I am not a believer. I know that God heals. Pranessa, January the 5th, 1990, I was in the hospital in ICU. They told me I would never walk again and I would not live to see Christmas. I asked the doctor one question. I said, by what authority do you speak? He said, it's my professional opinion. I said, well, then I'm safe. I said, if you had told me that God told you to tell me that, or the Spirit led you to tell me that, I would say, okay, bring me a wheelchair, and somewhere between now and Christmas, I would exhale and move on. That's not what you said. He said, I know this is hard for you to accept. I said, no, I don't accept it at all. And I sat up and I said, I'm going to do something in front of you that you're not going to understand. And I laid hands on my own body and said, I declare by the power of God in me that I shall walk again and have an abundant life. It is so.
Yes.
And he looked at me. I said, say everything you need to legally say and morally say one time and never repeat it to me again. I'm going to demonstrate to you. The only thing you're telling me is you ran out of answers.
Yes.
That night in my prayer, I'm sitting up in the bed, and I tell people I learned that there are two types of prayer, and I don't mean individual and corporate.
Right.
The pretty prayer and the ugly prayer.
Yes. The pretty prayer and the ugly prayer.
Pranessa, they were preparing me for the next day to put a shunt in me and send me to hospice. I was praying that night, and I said, God, until you answer me, I am not going to leave you alone. I was taking the Laden every 6 hours. My body was swollen. I started praying at midnight. I told the nurse, please don't come in the room. She said, why? I said, I will be in prayer, and the only voice I need to hear is God. And I started praying, and somewhere around 12:30, 1 o'clock, the pain started in my body again. And I'm crying, and now I'm starting to scream at God. What's wrong with you? I've done everything you've ever asked me to do. If it's time for me to die, come get me, but you are not going to leave me alone.
Yeah.
I am screaming. The nurse opened the door and said, are you okay? I said, are you God? She said, no. I said, are you Jesus? She said, no. I said, get the hell out of this room.
Bishop, let me do a little pause for the cause. You are watching Bridging the Gap. For those of you who are just tuning in, I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown. I am glad to be here with you on this evening. And we are here with the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. They are doing great work, and I'm an ambassador for them. And tonight I am here with Bishop Rainey Cheeks, and he is telling his story. I want you all to make sure that you are tuned in to hear this great man of God give us what God has given him after 39 years of living with HIV. He is still here to tell his story.
Yes.
Bishop?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I will say this. Around 2:30, 2:45, the Spirit literally pressed me and laid me flat in the bed. And I heard the voice of God said, I hear you. I am right here.
Yeah.
All the pain left my body.
Wow.
Vanessa, I will say this. I got real quiet and real still because I didn't know if that meant I'm coming to get you or I'm ready to heal you.
Sure.
However, even with that demonstration and some ministers who saw me go through it still question. This is where the black church failed. There were certain people like Bishop Flounder, Carl Bean, even Jeremiah, who broke
And
through.
Vanessa Steele.
Pronessa Seal, absolutely, who broke through and lived the faith. To live the scriptures exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Now, and it challenged the black church because you had to talk about sexuality.
Yeah.
And the
And
church
tell me
wasn't
this.
ready to
Why do
talk
you think
about,
that why we still not ready to talk about it, Bishop?
no,
We
not in
still
an
not
honest
ready.
way.
Not in an honest way. What
And
can we
so
do? Because we
that
have to
is
do
that
something.
last taboo, you know?
Yes, sir.
And because what is also interesting to me, folks will go to divinity school, have all kind of degrees and letters behind their name, and still preach dogma.
Yes.
I was in a discussion with somebody last week. He graduated. He's working on his PhD, and then I asked him a simple question. I said, "I know you study how the Bible was put together." And he looked at me. I said, "Do you teach it?" And his answer to me was, "People aren't ready for that." I said, "Oh, how did you determine that?"
Pretty much I've heard a lot of black people that have exited out of seminary, like myself, who graduated and everything. And when you are getting information, it sounds like I'll never preach that in my church. I'll never say that. I can never tell my people that because then I won't have a church.
Which is mind-blowing to me.
Mind blowing to me.
Yes.
Very
And
mind blowing.
and
But it's to keep the money. It's to keep the people because the people bring the money and people want to keep the money flowing, so they don't want to talk about certain things. They
but that's
know.
why people are leaving the church.
That's exactly why people are leaving the church, Bishop.
Yeah. And we have to do, I am praying that the younger people that are coming through seminary or deciding to pastor and get in leadership, it will simply tell the truth. You will get
Yes.
more people.
Yeah.
I always warn people that in pastor, I said, in leadership, it's like a drug. You'll get a high every time you're up in front of the people. And you'll do whatever you need to do to keep that high going because you forgot it was not about you.
That's right.
So we have some other issues in the black community.
Talk to us.
Like clinical trials.
Yeah.
We still have that stigma of Tuskegee.
Yes, we do.
And don't forget, Howard University asked me one time to come in, this was in the early days, of why they couldn't get people into the clinical trials. And I said, I'm going to do a demonstration. And I had them to place like a syringe and a needle. And I said, I'm your doctor. So I'm holding one needle in front of me. No. I forgot. I had another doctor come in this. I said, I want you to prepare two needles. One, face them while you're talking. The other one, turn your back just for a second.
Yeah.
While you're doing it. And so when I asked them, I said, what is wrong? What just happened? Do you see anything wrong? And most of them said no. I said, When he turned his back, all of my warning signals go off. I said, Tuskegee ring a bell?
Yeah.
I said, the moment he turned his back, now I don't trust him anymore. Why wouldn't he do it in my face? So I had to teach them, don't turn your back when you're preparing a needle.
Sure.
I give Dr. Fauci a lot of credit because when I first started going to like conferences,
Yeah.
the epidemiologists and stuff were using terminology that we were sitting there going, what are they talking about?
Right.
And we were struggling to follow what they were talking about. And in one of the meetings, Dr. Fauci said, we have lay people in the room. We have community activists that are doing the work.
Yeah.
I want you to use language that they can understand.
Yes.
And I was like, Dr. Fauci, thank you.
Yeah.
And the more people can really get to understand what it is on a basic level, I'm surprised still how many people do not have a basic, real understanding of HIV.
Yes.
And
I
that
agree with
it's
you.
not in just a gay community.
Correct.
That misnomer is still in many places.
Which is what I'm going to bring me to this question, and I'm glad that you said that, because also out of these discussions, or what people that are missing from these discussions are Black women and Black
Yes,
trans women,
yes,
right?
yes.
That uh, we never really have those conversations because we always are focusing them on gay men. But in all actuality, the infection rate is high in Black women as well.
I think that is changing in many places.
Yeah.
Um, I will give Black women credit on one side first, and that is Black women and many of our lesbian sisters were the caregivers for Black gay men who were sick,
Indeed. It's true.
who came in and cooked and sat with us and that whole thing. I often called my female friends to help because so many other people were just burnt out or sick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they stepped up into that role.
Yes.
What needs to happen now
Talk
is
about it. Yes.
just like gay men had to fight to get at the table.
Yes.
Because the truth is, we have to remember racism is still very strong in the gay community.
Uh-huh.
So that is why I started Us Helping Us, because mind you, from 1985 until 1991, we
Yeah.
never had a grant.
6 years.
I worked strictly out of pocket, and the first grant that we got was $20,000, and it was because somebody was failing to fulfill their grant,
Yeah.
and the health department asked me if I would take it, but it was restricted to what that grant was.
Sure.
Now, I had to go through a major learning curve, how to write grants and how to do this and how to get in the door. I think that women must create their own environments where the grant money can come.
Understood.
We have a lot of female women groups and trans groups, but the problem again with the trans group is many of them are not educated enough, and we ran into that situation here. People were helping, they had a trans group. Our church was taking food and making sure that their pantries were full, and when they had like a gathering to eat, we would cook the food and just bring it and give it to them. and they ended up mismanaging money.
Yeah.
And they had all the help they needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage, and many of our trans sisters today are more educated than in the
Absolutely.
past.
I've got some brilliant ones that are working now, education, running
Yes,
501c3s. Nala
yes,
Simone has something called Road. They have Trans Liberation Kitchen. So many things, at least I know in
yes.
the New York and New Jersey area, that exist amongst our trans women.
And see, places like New York, New Jersey, DC, LA,
Yep.
they are very progressive places.
Yep.
Where we get stuck is South,
I
you
see.
know, Midwest.
Hmm.
I, we're stuck. We're still stuck,
I see.
and it's going to take still that those who are willing to jump into the water. And I tell people, you can't be committed just going ankle deep.
Yeah.
Vanessa, is like when people come to me and say, I think I've been called to pastor. I said, baby, you're having a real bad day. Take 2 aspirins and wake up in the morning. Because pastoring, people only see maybe 10% of what pastoring really is.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Somebody trying to get you, Bishop.
yeah. I thought it was on. I thought I cut it down. Oops, there it is. Because they only see the surface. They only see us on Sunday.
Right.
They don't see that we're working all during the week.
All during the week.
It's like somebody said to me one time. I said, no, I gotta shut down the sermon writing time. And they said, well, would you be finishing maybe a couple of hours? I said, baby, do you understand that it takes somewhere around on a
Hey,
short one, even
that's
if
right.
you're revamping something that you've already done,
Yeah.
that's 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
I said, we're talking 12, 14, 16 hours.
Takes
He said,
several
but you
days.
only preach 20 minutes. I said, yes.
Yes, but it's gotta come together. Like you can't just throw something together and give to the people.
Yes. And today, preach something wrong, and people in the congregation going, Googling you, going, mm-mm.
You're right, Bishop. You are so right.
Yes, no, you can't get away with just
You gotta
preaching
know what you're
anything.
talking about, right? We have a more educated congregation, right? Whether
Yes,
they're educated in theology or not, that's not the point. They're still educated and they know enough when
yes.
you're running off the track. Okay.
And here's where I believe, again, where we can jump ahead if we work together.
Yeah.
Our, our, all the organizations, gay and lesbian, trans, need to be able to come together and share information with each other.
Yes.
Imagine what that would look like. So if they're stuck on something, you can give it to them. If you're stuck on something, somebody in the group can give it to you.
Right.
I did this many years ago. I called a meeting for all pastors of affirming churches to come together. And I said, the agenda is there's no agenda.
Huh.
We're just coming together to just break bread. Because if you're friends, you're automatically going to do what's healthy. And after about 2 or 3 meetings, and people came in the beginning and they said, only reason I'm coming is because you asked me.
Wow.
I don't trust so-and-so.
Mm.
And I said, we don't have to. Just break bread.
Right.
And then at one meeting, I said, listen, some of you have grants, some of you don't. Some of you got good programs going, some of you don't.
Right.
Let's share with each other what we're doing to see how we help our community get the personality stuff out the
Collaboration.
way. Yes.
Yes.
And it was going strong for a while.
Yeah.
And the moment I pulled back,
Fell apart, Anna.
so I'm trying to do that again now and here, and to bring
Good.
the religious leaders together
Mm-hmm.
to say, how do we support each other
Yes.
in getting this work done? Because the Black church in our community, I can't speak about anybody else's community, but in our community, the Black church is still that source to get information out, to educate, to save our own folks. People think, I tell people, are there things right in the church? Not everything.
Right.
Humans are there. We're human. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
Don't throw out the baby, the bath water, and the soap. Sometimes the water needs to get changed and get a new washcloth.
Yeah. I
Sometimes
hear you.
that soap is irritating. Get some other soap and change the water.
Yes.
The baby is still good.
Yeah. It's good. I wanted to say, go back to women, go back to Black women and trans women, and in terms of go out there, get the funding. There's been funding in the trans community. There's been some malfeasance, but I know that that's happened not just in
Oh, sure.
with Black women. That's happened with gay Black men as well. That's happened with a lot of people that have these organizations that get this money. One of the things that Bishop Fund has always said, like, if you're gonna get a grant, you got to do what the grant says, especially if it's restricted funds. If it's
Yes.
unrestricted, then okay. But if most of the grants that come for this kind of work is usually restricted funds, some of them are capacity building grants. And I want to encourage people who are looking to do 501c3s, any kind of nonprofit work, to do one of the first things you said was learn how to write grants. Learn what the ins and outs of it are. Learn what the RFP is that you are reading, that you're trying to go for, and find out if you have actually the capacity to do that grant. And if you don't have capacity to do that grant, then you need to collaborate with someone and let them know, I have
Yes.
access to this grant. Can we collaborate? Which means that you're gonna have to, you don't get to keep the whole pot of money, but
Yes.
at least you don't lose it because you didn't have the capacity and you didn't want to call on anybody else to help you.
The other thing that I want to share with you is the reason most people do not know why Black Gay Pride was started.
Talk to me about it.
Black Gay Pride was started to raise money to support Black AIDS service organizations so that we could have unrestricted money.
I see.
You know this, if you got a grant and it says it can only be used for this,
Right.
that's all you can use. But you're trying to like pay the light bill,
Right.
or you're trying to like pay some volunteers or something.
Right.
Unrestricted money. So Black Gay Pride in the beginning was started right here in Washington, D.C. to raise money for Black gay AIDS service organizations to have unrestricted money to survive.
I see.
And I've been asking the leadership of Black Gay Pride, please get that in back to your focus.
Yes.
And one person said to me, well, we really don't make that much money off of Black Gay Pride. I said, the reason is you forgot the mission. If you're telling people we're giving this dance and all the money from this will go to an aid service organization, people would then come to that. But I believe that it's our responsibility to hold even groups like Black Gay Pride and others. We must hold people feet to the fire.
I see.
We have to keep speaking up.
Yeah.
Don't talk about AIDS just on AIDS Awareness Day.
Right.
I had a reporter that came to my church and he said, I just wanted to watch how you run service. And I said, okay. And it was doing, I want to say it was AIDS Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And he saw condoms on the table.
Yeah.
And he said, you have condoms on the table in the sanctuary?
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah. I said, at the end of service, watch. I stood at the door passing them out.
Absolutely. I've done it.
And he was like, you pass out condoms?
Yes.
I said, it doesn't do any good for me to preach to empty chairs.
That's right.
I'm trying to save people's lives.
That's right.
So yes, I talk about HIV right from the pulpit.
Right from the pulpit.
I'm taking condoms and putting them in people's hands. So my thing was always put them in your pocket. You
Right.
know, the women come back and open your purse, baby, and I drop condoms in the purse.
That's right.
I said we have to be willing to be that open, not hide anything.
I think we have to go back to it again.
Yeah.
I think you have
mean,
to go back
I
to
talk
it.
about my status. It's people think that it's easy. I said, no, I understand. It's still sometimes hard for me to even do it again. It's like I got to come out again, you know?
Yeah.
But if that me speaking out
Yeah.
will save somebody's life,
Yeah.
I will scream it from the top of the roof. I am grateful people like you, people like Bishop Flonder, who have picked up this mantle, not just when it looks good.
That's right.
Not just when the camera's on. I remember we were at Tuskegee,
Yes.
and it was a conference there. And I was on the panel, and I openly disclosed my status.
Yes.
And I kind of told my story, what I told in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a room full of pastors, over 200 of them. And one of them said, if people had faith, they would be healed and they would get up and walk out.
Wow.
Jeremiah Wright leaned over to me and said, Rainey, you okay? I said, yeah, but it's beginning to get a little. He said, I got you. I said, I'm going to just go over there and sit down. So I eased over to the side and sat on the front row. And I felt these arms coming around me, and I was ready to turn around and swing.
Right.
It was Bishop Flonder. She was easing her arms around me. She said, I got you.
Yes.
I said, thank you. And Jeremiah Wright said, to all of you born again, holy, sanctified folks, since you got so much power, he said, let me tell you, my father died of pancreatic cancer. And when I asked him, what could I do? He said, pray for an easy death.
Yeah.
He said, didn't you just hear this man talk about getting up when the doctors told him he would never live?
Yes.
And you now saying that if people had faith, they would just cure themselves of HIV? And so it's that kind of craziness that
it's the
runs
level
people
of
away from
ignorance.
church.
Yeah, really. Absolutely.
So we need more voices willing to speak up publicly.
Yes.
Unapologetically.
Yep.
And not just talk about it. You've been at our church. If somebody stranger walked in, they know, sit them on the front row.
Yeah.
No. I said, that might be one of God's angels testing us to see what we'll do.
That's right.
I believe that HIV came along just to find out what is it that you really believe.
Well,
you said you would feed the hungry. Well, there's somebody who's hungry. You said you would pray for the sick and shut in. Well, there's the sick and the shut in. I have an expression, Bishop. I listen to what I see.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that you believe in the love of God and you're judging people because of who they are.
Yes.
Don't tell me that you are a Christian. Most of the time, I don't even say I'm a Christian. I tell them I'm a follower of Yahshua. Because I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
You know all the songs. You know when to shout. All you need is 3 chords, dun, 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 and folks get ready to shout.
Right.
But when I see you put it into action, whoa.
Yeah.
You won't even go to the hospital to visit somebody.
My Lord.
Whoa, you won't touch somebody. You say you're going to pray for them, but you won't touch, you won't lay hands.
Yeah.
or I can't feed you because you're not a member of my church.
Wow.
The black church has to take responsibility that we would be much further along if the black church literally lived up to what they confess that they do.
Yeah.
And, listen, AIDS isn't asking you to do anything that cancer's not asking you to do.
Right.
AIDS isn't asking you to do anything that lupus isn't asking you to do.
That's right. HIV, none of it. It's not. You're so
Yeah,
right.
it's not asking you to do anything but help that person who is ill and sick.
Yeah.
No judgment.
No judgment.
And what we have to get rid of is all the judgment
And the
that's in the
stigma.
church.
And the stigma.
Yes, and the
Because
stigma.
you have learned over the years that you'll speak and you'll tell about your status, but people, I know that people are still afraid to talk about their status.
Yes,
People are still ashamed of their status.
yes.
And
And make sure we understand. And many of them are ministers.
yes,
It does. You have to have some courage
yeah, you do.
to stand in the pulpit and say, "Hi, I'm Bishop Cheeks. I'm HIV positive,"
Yes,
or "I'm living with HIV."
yes,
I've gotten so used to it. I never wanted this position, trust me. And
I hear you.
especially the first time I was on camera, I was inside. I had all kind of conversations going on. Run, don't say it. Just talk about everybody else. And it was like,
Yeah.
nope. You got to be bold.
Got to be bold.
You're in ministry. You cannot do this being a wimp. Pranessa, know this. I would never preach at a church that you can't preach at.
Yeah.
That's my sister. That's a woman of God. I always remind people, it was a woman that birthed Joshua. It was a woman that washed his feet. It was a woman that was at the foot of the cross when the men were hiding. It was a woman that he first said, go tell them I'm back.
Yes.
And so how do we not ordain women? And women were in the group that he sent out.
Yes.
They forget that.
Yes.
He had more than just the 12 disciples.
That's right.
And it is amazing to me, again, how people go to school, learn all of this, but scared to teach it.
Yeah.
We lack all the accoutrements. We lack all of the fanfare. And instead of liberating people and freeing people.
Yeah.
And HIV has simply come along to say, let me see what you really believe.
Let me see. Let me see. Let me see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bishop. This has been incredible. You have conjured up Pranessa Seal. So I'm going to reach out to her because you have called me her name 100 times today. And guess what? We're going to invite her to come. We're going to invite Bishop Flutter to come. And then I'm going to invite the three of you all at once to be on. And I know that that's going to be a wonderful conversation.
Oh, that will.
Yeah, that's going to be a
wonderful. Pranessa Seal is one of the women from the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
Unapologetic.
Yeah.
Many of the men did not want to listen to her, and she simply kicked her feet and kept going.
Yeah.
So, she's one of the sheroes in this movement.
Awesome. Awesome. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom. I believe that somebody's going to watch this somewhere and hear something that you said. It's going to inspire them. It's going to uplift them. It'll move them to possibly taking their medication if they're not, it'll move them to possibly, homogenizing themselves and getting themselves together as it relates to their spirituality and their sexuality, all of these things.
I would love to remind people, you're made in the image and likeness of God.
Yes, sir.
God knew who you were going to be and what you were going to be. God has a calling in everybody's life.
Yes.
And you cannot live your calling if you're afraid to show who you are.
That's right.
I tell people, you do not hold the keys to heaven or hell, so why would I listen to you?
That's right.
So I encourage all of those who may be struggling with their sexuality, get to a church that will affirm you.
Yes.
Talk to somebody that affirms your life. Know that you are worthy just as you are. Don't have to change one thing.
And Bishop, tell the people where your church is.
Inner Light Ministries, Washington, D.C. We are at the Anacostia Art Center on Marionberry. They just changed the name. Marionberry Avenue, Southeast.
Yes.
The head pastor is Wallace, Reverend Dr. Wallace Henry, and I'm proud to be the founder and the senior bishop.
When do you have services?
Sundays at 11 a.m. We just celebrated our 31st anniversary. And I am blessed. I am blessed to be able to sit back and watch two organizations that I founded, Us Helping Us and
Yes.
Inner Light, and be able to get out of the way and watch them grow.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
something else that we got to learn as Black people.
Yeah.
How to prepare for succession.
How to prepare for succession. Yeah. This is
Yes.
good.
So I am really, really proud of you in doing this work and keeping it alive.
Thank you.
It is still very much needed, like the statistics that you quoted earlier, for
Yes.
young people who are
Yes.
still getting infected. And like I said, the urgency
The
has
urgency.
been taken out because people are living longer.
But let's put the urgency back.
Yes. Yes. We got to put the urgency back, and we got to keep the conversation up front.
Conversation. Yes.
Up front.
Up front and in the center. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Bishop Cheeks. You are a
Thank you.
joy.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Thank you all for watching us. This is Bridging the Gap. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown. Thank you to the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. We are encouraged and we will have more conversations. We want you to hear. We want you to share. Make sure that you're sharing. Bishop Cheeks will be on soon. You will see him, and we'll be on Facebook and we'll be on YouTube, and we want you to join us there. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Everyone stay